What's up, guys? Thank you so much for tuning into yet another episode of the Sports Muse podcast. I am your host, Kevin Brumley. Man, I'm excited to talk some hoops today. NBA playoffs kick off today. Actually, the first game's underway. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk from the Eastern Conference to the Western Conference, and we're going to start with the 1 versus 8 in each conference. So, first game, we got the Bucks versus Magic. What's the weird thing about this year's playoffs is home field, or home, I should say, doesn't really matter. So when we're looking at it, the Bucks don't really have any injuries. Ilyasova's a little beat up, but nothing important. He's not going to miss any time. You look at the Magic, Isaac's out, Bamba's out, Michael Carter-Williams is out, Gordon's a little beat. Not sure, at what capacity he's going to be able to play at. He might miss game 1. So with this one, I think it's pretty cut and dry. I'm fully expecting the Bucks to sweep this series, which normally I don't pick a sweep. I think the Magic are talented enough to get hot for a game and maybe steal one. That's best case scenarios, maybe Bucks in 5, but I kind of expect the Bucks to sweep this one. And then we got the 2 versus 7. We got the Toronto Raptors versus the Brooklyn Nets. The Raptors are really healthy. OG's the only one that's a little beat up as of now. I think Toronto has a huge chip on their shoulder. As soon as Kawhi left, everyone wrote them off. Nobody thought they were going to be good. But I completely expect the Raptors to be there, probably a conference finals. And they do have a chance to make the NBA finals. That's how good they are as a team. They don't have that one guy like Kawhi last year, but they are an extremely talented team. And like I said, you can't underrate what it's like to have that chip on your shoulder. The Nets, you talk about a team that's just decimated with injuries. Their top 4 guys didn't play in the bubble, out for the playoffs. If I'm the Nets, I'm trying to look bright side, and I'm trying to look for them to just get some reps in the playoffs. Some of these guys that are going to be, key contributors next year as like role players, because, Kyrie, KD, DeAndre, Dinwiddie, all those guys should be back next year. So you're looking for some of those guys to just get a little bit of reps. Maybe they get hot. They might steal one. But I'm taking the Raptors in 5. It's just too much for the Nets. That gets us to, I think there's 2 series in this first round that really stand out as competitive, and this is one of them. It is the Boston Celtics, the 3 seed, versus the 6 seed, the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm repping AI gear right now. So, it's tough, man, because you look at the Celtics, they're healthy. Kemba's been load management all year. So hopefully, he's good to go. He's ready to turn up in the playoffs. Tatum has been just filthy during this bubble. He's been straight balling out. He looks like the Jason Tatum that we hoped for after year 1. The 76ers, they have no Ben Simmons, and a lot of time, people have been calling for no Simmons because they think with him and Embiid, they don't work well together. Well, my thing is, I agree with that, and I understand that thought. I think the entire offense is going to run through Embiid, because when you look at Tobias Harris, he's going to be manned up by Jaylen Brown more than likely, and it's going to be tough for him to really get off in this series. So you're going to look for Embiid to look a lot of scoring, to be a playmaker, and I just don't think Embiid's the greatest playmaker when he's not just scoring. I look for, the 76ers to go dump it down to the post, run baseline, and I look for somebody like a Marcus Smart to do a lot of backdoor, chase the guy on the baseline, come back around and send a double that he might not be expecting. So, could force a lot of turnovers. I think that's going to be the biggest thing going against the 76ers. Embiid's an amazing player and might be the best player in the series. It's just those 2, 3, 4, 5 guys are probably the Boston Celtics as far as the next best guys. Without Simmons, the big thing is they don't have another guy to really make plays late in the game. I mean, like I said, they have Tobias Harris. He's more of a scorer than he is a playmaker. So, it's kind of a wait and see thing. Maybe he gets really hot in the playoffs. But like I said, Jaylen Brown's a really underrated defender. So I really think the 76ers might struggle on this, and I'm taking the Celtics in 6. And that brings us to the last series in the Eastern Conference. It is the Pacers versus the Heat. This should be a good one. I think I would definitely go Pacers if Sabonis was healthy. But when we're looking at the Pacers, they are a little banged up. TJ Warren, I know, is a little injured right now. I don't expect him to miss a game or anything like that. If they had Sabonis, I think that's another guy that the Heat would have to deal with. TJ Warren, can he continue to just be absolutely out of his mind in fuego? This guy cannot miss during the bubble. So it's going to be interesting to see. The Heat actually have a really low-key injury, which is Jay Crowder. And, he was kind of a throw-in with the Iggy deal. But he's actually been like an underrated, pretty big contributor for that Heat team. Hopefully the knee doesn't linger because I don't really, he's a tough guy. I expect him to play. But I don't know how much it's going to really hamper him long term. And then Iggy always seems to step up during the playoffs, but he's not a young cat. So that's going to be an interesting one to see. This is going to be a good one. It's not going to be the sexiest games, you know what I mean? It's not going to really be high scoring blowouts, but with Bam, with Jimmy, I kind of expect them just to be a little bit better. And I'm going with the Heat in 7. So I think that's the only series I have going, all 7. So that should be a really good one. And that brings us to the West, man. We got the red hot Blazers making the 8th seed against the Lakers. If the whole hiatus from the NBA with the quarantine, if it helped one team more than any other, it has to be the Lakers, right? Because LeBron's still arguably the best player in the league. The worst thing about LeBron is he's getting older. So you get a nice long break. He was taking care of himself. Bron doesn't have to go 82 hard and then, another 20 in the playoffs. With that long break, he got time to rest his body. So he's going to be able to really put the pedal to the metal for the playoffs. So it should be pretty interesting. I've said a few guys were hot. I don't think anybody was hotter in this bubble, this shortened season, past the quarantine, than Dame Lillard. Dame was just stupid. If he was cold in the first half, you just knew he was going to catch fire in the second half. CJ is a killer. I would really think about taking the Blazers and almost any other if they're going against any other team. The Lakers are just a really bad matchup. The Blazers are a guard-heavy team. Yeah, they do have Melo. Gary Trent's not a huge guy. Yeah, they have Whiteside and Nurkic. But the two main guys are Lillard and CJ. And the Lakers are just a monstrous team. They're going to throw length at Dame and CJ. They're going to really have trouble getting in the lane and scoring over an Anthony Davis, LeBron, McGee. It's just going to be really difficult for them. Now, can they get hot? And it sounds crazy, but are they capable of shooting 40, 45% from behind the arc? Yeah, I mean, that could happen. It's just, do you expect them to do it 4 games and win? I don't think. I do think they make this a better game than what any other team could have in that 8th spot. So I'm taking the Lakers in 6. And that brings us to Clippers versus Mavs. The Clippers don't have bad injuries, but they have a few key role players banged up. Harrell, Beverly, Shamet. Especially, I think Beverly's a big one because no one's going to really just shut down Luka. Luka's too good. But we see that he just gets under people's skins. He makes people work for everything. Beverly's a big one, and Harrell's a guy that could, again, not going to stop Porzingis, but give Porzingis a harder time than what somebody else could on that team. Much like the Blazers, the Mavs can get red hot, and I think the biggest thing for the Mavs is Luka and Porzingis can't just worry about scoring the ball. I mean, they're going to have to put up 60, 65 points a game between them, but it's even more important that they're playmakers and they're really getting everybody involved. For someone like a Seth Curry to get hot and maybe put 25 up in a game, that kind of thing. The Clippers have the two guys, man. They're Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. We saw what Kawhi did last postseason. I said LeBron's arguably the best player in the league. I think, Kawhi's that guy. It's he's quiet, but he might be the best guy in the league. Paul George has actually looked really good with the break. It's just gonna be a tough one for the Mavs. Nothing against the Mavs. They're a fun team and kind of like the Nets in a way. If I'm the Mavs, I'm just kind of hey, I'm getting some playoff experience, getting my feet wet, and they're only going to get better as time goes on. But for this year, for 2020, I am taking the Clippers in 6. That brings us to kind of a weird series with the Nuggets versus Jazz. Neither teams look great since coming back. The Nuggets are still pretty up. They didn't have Murray for most of the start of the season again, but the Nuggets are still missing Harris and Barton. Murray hasn't played a ton, so we're not sure how much minutes he's going to be able to carry, and it's playoff minutes, so it's harder, it's heavier, so we're not exactly sure. I think the Joker's going to have a hard time really, the offense went through the entire bubble. If you watched any of the Nuggets games, he was the guy. He was basically running point. It's going to be tough to do that against Gobert. So I don't really look for him to be too much of a scorer. Not that he's a 30-a-night guy, but it's going to be a little bit harder for him. And then I think kind of the X factor for the Nuggets is what will Michael Porter look like in his first postseason. He's a guy that's been getting more and more minutes as the season's gone on. He's had games of brilliance during this bubble, and he's had games of he looks like a young pup. That's to be expected. So it's going to be interesting this first series to see how Porter looks. The Jazz, huge, man. That Conley left the bubble for his son's birthday, and I get it. I think the Jazz fans get it as well. If they had him, Conley, we don't know how much time he's going to miss. I would pick the Jazz to win this series. But with that being said, with Murray there, with the Joker, with Porter, I'm taking the Nuggets in 6. But I think it's going to be kind of some ugly games. I just think the Nuggets at the end of the day are going to be making more plays. And the final series that we have here is the Rockets versus the Thunder. Huge thing is the Rockets basically have lived and died by two guys, right? They have James Harden, they have Russell Westbrook. Well, Russell might miss this entire round, and Russell's a gamer. So if he does come back, for him to miss any amount of time, it's bad. And if they bring him back, I expect it to almost be more like a decoy, or in classic Russ form, he actually might hurt the team by just forcing up some offense if he does come back this round. It's going to fall a lot on Harden, and as we know, Harden isn't known as Mr. Clutch. I think he gets a bad rap. He's one of the best players in the league. He's one of the best offensive players we've ever seen in basketball. It's going to be tough because the Thunder play a team approach. And then I look at the Thunder, and how I talked about the Raptors having a chip on their shoulder. CP3 was traded from the Rockets. The Thunder used to have Russell Westbrook. I think there's going to be a chip on CP3 shoulders. I think there's going to be a chip on the Thunder shoulders. And I'm sounding the upset alarm, man. I'm taking the Thunder in 6 to yet again for kind of a disappointing exit from the playoffs for the Rockets. So I'll be coming back from time to time to drop more predictions or breaking down maybe after the first 2 games of what I'm seeing and what I'm thinking. If you guys can, hit like, hit subscribe, show some love, and I will see you guys next time.